All right, welcome back to False Count Radio. We're here with another in our interview segment, and we're here with one of the talks as of late. We're here with the innovator of intergender, the first lady of hardcore, the mother superior of violence, and most recently a member of the 2022 Indie Wrestling Hall of Fame. I am here with LuFisto. How you doing today,
I'm
LuFisto?
good. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for making the time and being able to join me this where I am this rainy Saturday morning.
Oh, it's very sunny up here in Canada.
I'm dealing with
First day
the
of fall. It's really nice in Canada.
we've got Ophelia coming through here today, so we have that going for us. So I'll just go ahead and get right into it because I know your time is valuable. Number one, when you started up, were you growing up a wrestling fan, and if so, who were some of your favorites?
um, it really went like back and forth when it comes to wrestling. When I was about 6 years old, I remember watching it with my grandma. She really liked Edouard Carpentier because he was like almost like a circus act, like doing nose flips. She really liked him. She liked Andre the Giant because, of course, he was impressive. She loved, loved, loved midget wrestling. That was one of her favorite things. And as for myself, the usual Ogun, a warrior at this time. And then I just stopped watching for years. And it was in 94 that I really got hooked. I was playing in a band and my drummer was like, you got to see this guy, he's building caskets. There's this feud with this guy from Japan. You got to see it, got to see it. So he was talking about the feud between The Undertaker and Yokozuna. And of course, from there, I just fell in love with The Undertaker, everything that he represented. And, so he was definitely my favorite then. I really always love Owen Hart. Besides that, going back a little bit in the past, because I would like buy like the famous tape trading, Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake. And that's also when I discovered Japanese wrestling, because at the same time Undertaker and Yokozuna were feuding, it was also Bull Nakano versus Alundra Blaze. So like I was hooked. Like I said, I was buying with my friend Luke, like we were getting VHS tapes from Japan, and we got some Smoky Mountain Wrestling and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, 94 is definitely where everything started for me, and it's really with The Undertaker, Alundra Blaze, and Bull Nakano.
So, and I'll say this because you and I are around the same age, so I'm used to interviewing people who grew up watching like the Bella
Or as old
Twins,
as my
uh,
wrestling career.
right, or less people who grew up
Yeah.
and they were like, I love the Bella Twins. Nothing wrong with that, but it's nice to talk to someone who's a little more contemporary of me. So when you got into Japan, that was also during the time where we were seeing a lot of the New Japan guys coming and doing stints in WCW. Were you getting that? Were you like getting into that, or was that something you just
Yeah,
didn't
I
get on television
mean,
up there?
my biggest inspirations when I started wrestling, we're talking Kenta Kobashi, we're talking Tenru, it's all those guys that really inspired my style, I would say, because these are the ones I was watching in WCW. Everybody was watching for the NWO, but for me, it was like more of the cruiserweights, and all the luchadors they would bring in, and the people from Japan. And so, yeah, definitely, that's really what inspired me and my style of wrestling. It was those guys and girls.
When I was a teenager, the first pay per view I saved up my money to buy was the Collision in Korea.
No, I can't remember the first one I've watched, but it involved Bret Hart or something. Like it was
Right.
definitely WWE. And in Canada, pay-per-views like were so hard to get live that sometimes I wouldn't even see the shows. I had to wait, and I had to buy the Coliseum home video
Right.
VHS to see the show because it was so hard to get the pay-per-views. And I think maybe 2 or 3 years later that I really got hooked in wrestling. Like we're talking when the Steve Austins were there and everything. Now, finally, we had pay-per-views and you
Right.
could see them live. And at first, so hard. I mean, yeah, Coliseum home videos got lots of orders for me.
We had a local video store that was really good about carrying the current stuff. So like when it was one I missed, I was able to go there and rent it. I know a lot of the people younger who don't really know what we're
Yeah, they
talking
don't know what
about,
that
but
means, but I would go and rent, like, especially when I tried to go back and know more about the history of wrestling.
right.
I would go to video stores when I could, and I would rent all their videos, and I would copy them with the
Right. Yeah.
videos. My poor grandma. I would go at her place because I would come in with my little VHS and she had hers, and I knew how to plug everything to copy the
Just
tape
stub them. Yep.
of my favorite matches. Oh my god, it's so much easier now with the downloads and everything.
Before I
Then.
figured that out, I just rented those one store had the same 3 videos. So I think I rented SummerSlam 1993 like 15 times. But I also remember when I was a kid, seeing Andre the Giant, because you mentioned Andre, and when I was young, I was afraid of Andre. I was like, I'm not used to the accent and the heavy accent that he had. And then when he turned heel, I'm like, I think he's Satan.
Well, he did grab Hulk Hogan's cross and broke it. But the accent for me is just usual. I do have a French accent, like, and Andre on television. We used to have like wrestling in French. We have Raw right now in French translated, but back then we had like my grandma used to look at like we had her own wrestling, and Andre would always speak French. So and Carpentier was also French, and the Vachons, and so yeah, that's a while ago. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been a kid.
So I remember hearing stories from Kevin Steen where he said that he learned to speak English by watching Attitude Era WWF. Do you have any stories like that, or did you grow up being bilingual?
Yeah, I was born French. My mom is French, and my whole family. And I actually learned wrestling. I mean, not wrestling, but I've learned English, not through wrestling, but I really loved the Ninja Turtles. And the shows were only in English. That and playing Zelda, The Adventure of Link, like the second one, you had all these little characters in the villages. They were talking to you and they gave you some clues. So here I was playing Nintendo with my dictionary, trying to figure out what they were saying. So I really learned English just by watching TV and playing video games. And, you know, back then it was Dragon Warrior and like other stuff like that, or Ninja Gaiden, like the scenes between. I'm like, what are they saying? What is he saying? So I was playing with my dictionary. So that's why when I started wrestling and going to the States, like my English was not that good. Like I was so like afraid to do promos because I have this big French accent. It's better now, but back then it was like really, really thick. And when I get Kikyo Fallen Flowers, like she always laughs at me and she imitates me. When I get tired, like my accent is out there and it's really annoying. She's pretty good at imitating me, by the way, when I get tired. But yeah, that's I mean, Kevin learned through watching English. I'm wrestling. I'm not surprised. And me, it's video games and you know, the Ninja Turtles.
Between you and Kevin, you learned English basically by me living my childhood. Did your family support you getting into wrestling? And what age were you when you started?
17. So, well, at first I started 16 because there was a wrestling school opened up in my own town with 4 local wrestlers. The school opened up like for a month or 2 and then it closed, but then it opened back again when I was 17. And then it went on for a while. And my mom, at first, when I told her I was going to do wrestling and women back then, it was like women wrestling in oil and gravy and bars. And she's like, no, don't do this. Oh my God. I was like, no, not this kind of wrestling. The one that's in the ring, you know, and My mom's a nurse, so she was always afraid I would get hurt. Like she knew exactly like every single injury I could get wrestling. But the fact that I've always been overweight. I was not really into sport. I was for a brief period of time where I played baseball and football, the only girl in the league. There's a pattern. So she actually paid for my wrestling classes because she's like, well, at least she's doing sports, and it might help herself accept her body, lose a little bit of weight, see people. I've always been kind of an hermit, still is. I was more about drawing, playing video games, doing things on my own. And with wrestling, as much as it's a very individual sport, it's also it's a team sport because you need to work with people to create whatever you want to create, a match, a storyline, whatever. So because of everything like that, she supported me, but she didn't like the fact that I chose wrestling.
Probably, yeah. I mean, the danger that goes along with it, parents tend to worry a little bit about that.
Being the only girl also, because now there's tons of women. Back then, I was the only girl in the class of 25.
Right.
And for a while, I was the only one in the province of Quebec that was active. So that's a lot of wrestler for that one girl. And my mom, and with, looking back, she was right, because she's like, you're the only girl in a man's world. And she was afraid of all kinds of stuff. Lots of it happened. And but yeah, supported, but not really happy that it was wrestling.
I interviewed Black Dahlia recently, and she said her family disowned her when she went into wrestling.
I'm sorry?
I said I interviewed Black Dahlia recently, and she said she and her parents disowned her when she went into wrestling.
Oh, I'm not surprised, because I don't know how many times my mom and even other people in my family were like, so when are you going to quit? 26 years later, I'm still here. Yeah, when are you going to quit? Or if I would get a major injury. So that's it, you're done. Like, how many doctors told me that, oh, this is the end, and hey, I was back. So yeah, I definitely can understand why. Like, I know some parents are totally against it, the way it looks, the way we dress, there's there's all kinds of stuff that comes with wrestling that are so good, and then things that are so bad, and parents being protective. You can't see wrestling as something good physically or mentally for your child, but
right.
It is what it is.
Yep. You talked about being in a training class with 25 men. Was there anyone in that class that your I guess mainstream or traditional wrestling fans would recognize?
No, none of them wrestle today.
All right. So you're the one that made it.
I'm the one.
Who was it that trained you?
At first, it was like 4 local wrestlers: Pierre Marchessault, Eric Laroche, Yves Millette, and Patrick Lewis. So yeah, they were training us. Yves was a retired wrestler, referee, but he was really good with the basics, and he would always, be the referee when we have like matches at the school. Pierre was more of the leader, and Eric was more the eye flyer. That's one thing that was good. We had one of each style. Patrick was more of a brawler, definitely a heel with a big mouth, and somebody that I since I started as a heel, he was my go-to to I would watch his matches and see how he would work, because starting as a heel, definitely he was an inspiration. And actually, I started as a manager with my teacher Pierre, because he's like, just so you get used with the crowd and what they say to you, and try to work the crowd. I was his manager for 1 or 2 shows. One of them we had to hide underneath, like I can't even remember where we hid, but we parked really far because people were like trying to. They hated us so much that they wanted to beat us up and scratch the cars and whatever. So we parked like very far, and it's like, oh, Pierre, I understand why when you did park that far.
Kayfabe was still
People were
alive.
like crazy, yeah. Good times.
Do you have your memories of your first match, and who was it with?
I do. And it was against a girl. She would go by the name Sophie the Queen. And the first match we had, she came to the school a few times. So we would practice because she was the only girl she wasn't active. And then she came back to wrestling because there was finally another girl. The first match I remember, it was in Drummondville. It went okay. Like, we didn't mess up anything. Like, people hated me. I remember changing in the back of a truck. It was outside. It was hot. And there was a spot outside where she would throw me into the post, and not knowing, they just told me protect your face. So I went like this, and I had such a huge bump on my arm because instead of being flat, I went on the side where the bone is. So I had the biggest bruise. And she pinned me with, I can't remember the move she did, but the 1, 2, 3, it went fine. And then the second one, which was supposed to be the exact same match, but this time I was going over because it was closer to where I lived. For some reason, I don't know exactly what happened, but this one, like, I freaked out because, well, not only before I went out, there was 2 wrestlers that were like, I don't know who you think you are, but you're not going to last in this business. And I was like, excuse me. And one of them, just before I went out, just threw water all over me. And I was like, okay. And it was like really it really freaked me out because I didn't know why they were so mean. And I got out, and during the match, I would call spots and she would go, no. Like, what do you mean? Like, why are you changing the match? No. And then she would switch and do things. And honestly, for match number 2, I survived pretty good. And I was able to improvise. But as a new wrestler, I was like, yeah, freaking out. And she didn't want to take anything for a finish. So she's like, I just throw my head in the mat and that'll be it. So I literally grabbed her hair and went boom. 1, 2, 3. And then I went backstage, and the same guys were waiting there for me. And you made her look bad and blah, blah, blah. I was like, it wasn't me. I was like, I remembered my spots. And we had 2 other matches after, and I just felt that, I don't know, just weird. And from that moment on, I was like, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it because it's so long ago, but I just know, like, everything, like, from the first match, everything was wrong. And yeah, the first steps in wrestling were not super cool.
They were talking to you that way, and here it is 20 some odd years later, and I'd be willing to bet there's a good chance they're not in the industry anymore.
They're not.
Yeah,
They're
I
not.
hear you are. So.
I am. Yeah. But yeah, it was special.
Early in your career, you did some work with Jacques Rougeau, and you've been relatively critical, for lack of a better term, pretty outspoken. And ironically, another parallel with Kevin Steen, because he has very similar stories.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, can you go into some detail on that?
Sure. I've met Jacques at a TV show in Quebec. We had a TV show where a bunch of wrestlers were.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was this a TV show you were working, or like at a like?
No,
WWE
it's like a
something?
TV show, like where they interview people who do like more of a Ricky Lake kind of show, like the Quebec version, kind of, Oprah-ish kind of show. And we were there, a bunch of wrestlers, and Jacques was there with his brother Raymond, which he is a gentleman. I love Raymond Rougeau. Such a class act. No wonder he is a mayor now of a city. And Jacques was like, oh, you're the only female wrestlers. I have this promotion coming, like International Wrestling 2000. And we went and had chicken with him. and a bunch of other wrestlers. My mom was there. And the funny thing is, she's like, my mom, after, she's like, there's something about him I don't like. He's really self-centered. He talks about himself nonstop. And I'm like, but it was Jacques Rougeau. It was the Mountie. I was what, 18, 19 at this time, brand new to the business. Like, I was like enamored, or like, it's Jacques Rougeau. So I started working for him, and at first things were like it was good. Like, he would teach me how to answer questions, because there was a lot of people from TV, news, and newspapers and stuff covering his shows. So he was really good at telling me, like, hey, when they ask you, when they tell you wrestling is fake, make sure you don't say it is, because it's not. Like, people know it's like predetermined, but it was all about keeping the magic. And even if, like, Vince McMahon had been out there saying, like, the fights are predetermined and this is the Attitude Era, blah blah blah, explain to them that wrestling, you do get injured. So I've learned good stuff with him. At the beginning, I really liked it. His shows were huge. The only problem is, like, it was really hard. There was no other girls again at this time. So my name was back then was Lucifer. And he's like, that's too devilish, you should change it. And I'm like, yeah, but people know me as this character. So he changed my name to Precious Lucy without telling me. I've learned by seeing the match in the newspaper with a new name. So again, since there was no women, it's like, you're gonna work a midget. And by the way, I say midget because Tiger Jackson Dink told me that that's how we named them. It's midget wrestling. It's the history, because I know a lot of people say like I should say little people, but Tiger Jackson gave me so much shit because I said little people instead of midget wrestling, that's why I use the term, because he's like, the history is midget wrestling. Name it as it is. I'm like, yes, sir, I will from now on. And I always did. Just before somebody calls me out on that, there's a reason why. So I was wrestling Little Broken, a taller midget. Like, he was about this size to me. So, like, and he was really good. Like, he would wrestle, like, he was not into doing funny stuff. He really wanted to be like a wrestler. And that's where everything with Jacques started. And I'm going into details now, which I never did before.
How sorry, before you go into that, how far into your career were you at this point?
2 years.
Okay.
I'm 2 years in. And I've never said anything about Jacques because he kind of went away for a while, and I was like, don't think about him anymore. He's out of the picture. And then last year he came back with that contest, and I was like, 2 years ago, actually. And it brought back all kinds of memories. And I'm like, no, this guy should not be out, promoting wrestling and talking to young kids, especially women.
He's also,
that's why I started.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. It's very rude, but he's also out doing the convention circuit too.
Yeah, suddenly. And yeah. I'll tell you why I'm like so pissed at that. So 2 years in, I get, he wanted us to practice our matches from A to Z. We had to go practice on a boxing ring 2-3 times a week because he didn't want us to fuck up, because his image, like, it had to be perfect. So we did that. And I get new gear made and shorts with stars. Like, it's really a nice gear, and I'm really proud of it. And it's a lot of money for us 19-year-old. My mom helped me, and I've worked, and I put money aside. And so we do the match, and everything goes good. And in the newspaper, it's actually a picture of our match that ends up in the biggest newspaper, the Montreal Journal. And he asked me to go to like his school, and he's like, yeah, he's like, you were in the newspaper. That should have been someone else. I'm like, Jacques, I did not choose to be in the newspaper. But then he goes like, those shorts, don't ever wear shorts again. Nobody wants to see those fat legs. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you got to start losing weight because you're too fat. It doesn't look good on TV. You're too fat for TV. I want to bring you on TV. This promotion's going to end up on TV. So you got to learn how to talk. You got to learn how to dress. So yeah, that's why I changed your name and, put your hair up like you did, like Marilyn Monroe. So from this point on, I really start to get I was always like concerned about my weight, because at home, my stepfather would tell me pretty much every day that I was fat. And I was not good looking and I would not do anything good. So I really didn't have a good relationship with him. But then I had moved from home because I was in college in Montreal. And for Jacques to say the exact same thing when he was kind of wrestling was, despite everything, like the sexual comments or whatever, wrestling was kind of my safe place where I could like get my frustrations out and prove people wrong and like prove my stepfather wrong that I would succeed. And that started with Jacques. And he started calling me at home saying, you got to do something about the weight, eat chicken, eat rice, not too much. Every week, calling me to ask me what I was eating. And, and I'm like, Jacques, I'm losing weight, but not really quickly. He's like, well, there are means out there. So use them. And I tried steroids, which I've never told before. But with Jacques going out this weekend with the Casey Spinelli thing, I'm like, this, as much as I don't like it, I will talk about it. And I became bulimic. And every time I would eat too much, I would go to the restroom and make myself puke. And I lost weight. I lost a lot of weight, but I looked so sick on some pictures. It was ridiculous. But then I would go tanning, so my skin would be darker and I would look like fit or whatever.
Right.
And that's also when Jacques told me that, why do you wrestle for other independents? Independents are shit. You make me look like an asshole. If you go there, you destroy everything I built on you. And he didn't want to go to the conventions because it was bad. Like, oh, these people are desperate. Look at them, blah, blah, blah. So indie wrestling was the shit. Conventions were the shit, everything. So that's why when his project came out, he tried to recruit many Quebec wrestlers. He even tried to add me as a friend on Facebook too. And almost every Quebec wrestler from that era knows him. And they know how much shit he talked about independent wrestling. And that's also when he told us, you can't go wrestle anywhere else unless it's in another province or another country, because you make me look bad and people want to pay to see you, they come to me. But the thing is, Jacques was not paying us much. He had shows like every 4 months. And it's like, how can I get better if I can't wrestle people who are better than me? Because he can find girls anyway. Right. He wouldn't let me wrestle guys because I started wrestling guys in other promotions because that was the only way I could get better. You wrestle people who are better than you. I'm the only woman. Well, you don't like it. I'm not going to be a manager. And I got a lot of heat because of that, because I didn't want to be a manager. I wanted to be a wrestler. So I was like, I'm going to wrestle the guys or not come at all on your shows. Or I can do both, though. I can be a manager of some shows. I can wrestle, but I have to do both. Like I can't. And that's where I joined ICW in Montreal. They would let me do that. They would put me in a clan where I could be a manager, where I could wrestle, and I wrestled the guys. The promoter himself, Serge, was the one who says, like, you know what, I'm going to wrestle you. I think there's money. And people went nuts. And then that's where I started doing hardcore with him, because he was kind of a heel that would use any kind of tactics to go over. So we started like fighting with chairs, and it really was a natural process of me getting into hardcore. And when I saw that people were going nuts for it, like there was almost a riot the first time we fought. Like, and Jacques did not like that. It made him look bad, and everything made him look bad. So I had to leave ICW because I wanted to stay with Jacques because he said TV was coming, which never did, by the way. TV never did like come. And I even brought one of my opponents, Amanda Storm, to his shows because from the US,
right?
Because he couldn't find anyone. And at one point, I'm like, I've been wrestling Amanda for the past 3 shows. I'm like, Jacques, can I wrestle guys? I understand there's no girls. There's no other girls. He's like, let me think about it. So again, he brings me to his school. And he's like, bring your boyfriend. My boyfriend back then was a wrestler. And he was not wrestling for Jacques. And he's like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you something, but you give me something in return. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to bleed or whatever? Like, what's the storyline? He's like, oh, no, not bleed. You do this in the shit promotions. And I was like, okay. He's like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a storyline where you get attacked by your boyfriend from the crowd, but he's dressed as a woman. I'm like, okay. And he's going to shave your head, like full. We're going to shave your head. You're going to end up on the front page of the newspaper. I'm at this time working in a clothing store, like more of a preppy kind of clothing store as a manager. And I tell him, Jacques, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm going to lose my job and I need to pay my bills. I have my own apartment. I'm 20 at this time. So it's a year later than all the weight thing bullshit that started and didn't stop since, by the way. And he's like, well, if I give you what you want, you got to give me what you want. And I want your hair. It's like, Jacques, it's not that I don't want. He's like, I'm going to pay you extra. There's no amount of money that can, is worth my job. I need to pay my bills. And I have some school bills to pay. And I was like, I can't. Oh, yeah, you're doing that to me after all I did for you? What are you going to do? Going to wrestle in those shit thing? Like, you're not giving me that? Well, you're not going to wrestle guys. I'm like, Jacques, I'm sorry, I can't. He's like, after all I did for you, this is disgusting. Blah, blah, blah. You're not going to end up on TV. If you're not with me, you're not going to go anywhere. And then I said, well, Jacques, I quit. Bye. And I left. That's my story with Jacques Rougeau.
So this was what year when you
1999, 2000.
Okay. And then you said something about
that's why I'm very vocal about Jacques Rougeau. And what he did to me, the weight and everything was purely because I was a woman, but I've seen it do it to other guys. I've seen him talk down wrestlers who were gay, like calling them the F word. And in front of me, he also called Abdullah the Butcher. Because at first, Abdullah was on his show and he was wrestling and he was bleeding. It's Abdullah the Butcher.
Right.
You know what you're gonna get. At first on his few,
you're not gonna be getting sunset flips and things like that with Abdullah.
Especially he was older back then. We're talking 99, 2000. Right. Still like very over. Abdullah in Quebec is really, really over. And he was doing his bleeding stuff with the fork. Everything was cool. But then Jacques decided that he would be a family show. And I mean, I'm right there when this happens. And he goes in front of me and tells Abby about, no more bleeding. No more bleeding. It's a family show now. And Abby's like, Jacques, this is my gimmick. And he's like, no, you can't, blah, blah, blah. And he just goes like, I can't imitate Abby's voice, but this guy, Rougeau, you fucking crybaby. And Rougeau says in French, and I'm right there. He's like, you big fucking N-word. And I'm like, whatever. And this adds up to everything. Like, there was the weight issue, there's the gay comments, there's Abby, and then there's the thing about wrestling the guy, shaving my head, and in between not wrestling for anyone else but him, because we make him look bad, and he invests time in us doing 2 shows or 3 shows a year. And yeah, that's the story, Rougeau. That's why I hate him. That's why I can't understand. Well, people don't know. That's why they get involved with him, but don't. Jacques is all about Jacques, and the only reason he came back it's because he saw that wrestling is in like a boom right now. And suddenly he's doing those conventions that were so low, and suddenly he shows up at wrestling shows, indie wrestling shows that were disgusting and below him, and we made him look bad. Don't ask yourself why Quebec wrestlers are not participating in his contest unless it's people who've been with him forever, or who are new because they don't know. That's the reason why. We know him. We know him. He's one of the worst human beings I have ever met in this business.
Do you ever, now that he's doing the convention circuit, do you see him at any of those? And do you, are you like at the same ones, or you just make it a point?
No, I don't really do conventions. Like, I have enough with my bookings. And yeah, I don't really want to see him. And if I see him, I'm like, I'm going to remind him. It's like, Jacques, I don't want to talk to you. And I see him going like, oh, it's a line. And he's like the worst, like, car salesman ever. Like,
right.
But yeah, that's Jacques Rougeau. That's why I've been vocal, but that's the whole story. That's the whole story of why you should not get involved with Jacques Rougeau. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. Wow. And if he helps you, it's because it's going to help him, which what he's doing right now with QT Marshall. QT, who texted me to know what was on with him, but when I would text him, QT wouldn't answer. How nice it is that, yeah, now I'm madder anyway.
You know what? I guess I'll skip forward because that's what everyone wants to hear about. That's where you've made news.
Sorry, that took a long time, but that's
I don't believe you've ever told that full story before.
No.
So thanks for telling us.
It really messed me up. It really messed me up. I had I
could understand.
Yeah, big issues with my weight and self-esteem. Like, not only there was my stepfather, but on top of that, Rougeau, he completely destroyed me. And it's something I had put back, and I didn't want to think about it anymore. And then he shows up again, and it's like everything like came out all at once. Yeah.
As you can tell, looking at me, I'm a fat guy, so I understand the self-esteem issues that kind of come along with that. But yeah. So yeah, what everyone wants to talk about, and as of recently, you were pretty vocal about AEW and their treatment of the women's division, stemming from your appearance with them in April of 2022. And this kicked off with a series of tweets that you made, which I'm gonna read real quick. So you know them, but for people who don't know, who might have just seen the headlines and not heard the whole story. You said, quote, "It's cute how people blame booking for a bad women's division. Talent with too much power, talent denigrating each other, talent trash talking potential employees they never get in as soon as they walk in. It starts here. Signed, the one you called effing French Canadian asshole." And then following up on that, one of your followers, this is done on Twitter, or X as they say now.
Yeah.
They asked you to name names, and you replied very professionally, quote, "This is the first time I say something publicly after over a year. I'm not going to go throw names on an app with limited characters. There are several details and a context to explain the whole story with accuracy, which I'll do when the opportunity arises. You also quote tweeted somebody who said that you'd ruined your chances of becoming an AEW employee to say, and you said, quote, "No worries, no need for such a toxic environment in my life." And I'll just say, as a fan watching that and seeing and hearing the stories and things like that, it definitely does seem to be a very, very toxic locker room, almost like a Mean Girls Club, although not 100% on the girls' side.
Definitely not, as we can see
Right.
lately.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, and a lot of this came out. You did an interview with Sean Ross Sapp recently, and I know not a lot of people have different opinions of Sean, and maybe didn't bother to hear it because it was Sean.
Mm-hmm.
So I will give you the floor to
Sure.
tell as much or as little of the story as you want.
Sure. So, yeah, because it all started. Everybody was like, "Oh, she kept that for a year," and she didn't say anything back then. The reason why I started talking publicly, it's because of the sign that was in the crowd. It was not because of what happened like a year. Like I have told, like close friends, boyfriend, whatever, of everything that happened, but never went into detail. I went a little bit into details on a French radio show, but not much. And it's really that signed, and like some fans thinking that, oh, book the women better. Well, guess what? The women are kind of booking themselves in a way. So stop blaming booking and everything else. Maybe dig down deeper on why the booking is so bad. Because yes, I agree, booking is bad. Booking is bad, but why is it bad? There's more to the story, and that's why I said that. And there's my story, but there's also several stories from women who had dark matches there, who worked there, who still worked there at this very moment, that told me how toxic it was, and that everything started with Britt Baker and went down with her. And there was that top core right there. And it all started from the top and then going down. And that's actually something I said in my interview with Sean, but I don't think it's in there. And why did I go like from A to Z to of my story? It was for people to kind of be able to sit down and see my day and understand my own experience, on why do I say those things. But my experience is the experience of several other women, and even guys, by the way, guys who went there for a few shots. The amount when I tweeted that, more when the interview came out, the amount of people who wrote to me and were like, I thought I was paranoid. Oh my God, I thought I was crazy. I felt the exact same thing. But here's the thing. Most of them / all of them still want a job there. They're not going to go public. And for those who wanted to, when they saw what transpired out of this, the death threats, the AEW getting together and go against, like, to make sure that, oh, our locker room is great. By the way, yeah, they did talk to each other before. I know that, texting or whatever. So they would all, like, within 5 minutes of each other, like, talk shit about me or whatever. The worst message with MJF, which I've never did anything to him besides hi and hello in a locker room at Beyond Wrestling, talking to me like I'm a piece of shit and whatever, that I didn't do anything in wrestling. Just go back and fucking do your research before you call me a nobody. It's not because you don't make it that you're a nobody. It's the same thing when it comes to the NBA, when the NHL. I know why I'm not signed, because back then I was too violent. I was wrestling the guys, and it was bad domestic violence, and the hardcore was not good for TV. I got all the freaking why and how and when, whatever. I haven't been there. And now I'm 43. I had injuries. Why would they take any chance? AW wanted me as a coach, but I'm not going to go over the story. But as a wrestler, I know why I'm not signed. Would I bring anything good to a promotion? I definitely think I could, but I know with my age, it's a physical sport. I know some people are more like, not really, they'd rather, pay and bring talents that are younger. I understand that. Is it right? I don't think so, because they do the opposite with the men still today. And the ones that are more over today are the guys in their 40s. But anyway, that's another story for another day.
Or their 60s in the case of Billy Gunn.
Look at Billy Gunn. My God. LA Knight.
Right.
Edge. Christian. I can go on and on and on and on. Anyway.
AJ Styles.
Here, there you go.
Yep.
So we can go on and on about that subject. Yeah, go ahead.
Nope, I was going to say you were just mentioning like the way that they came together to sort of denigrate you a little bit, and it was really weird that the only one who mentioned you by name was Dustin, who was an integral part of the story. But yeah, Britt Baker, Ty Mello, Ruby Soho, Taya Valkyrie, Soraya, Nyla Rose,
all
Madison
people
Rayne,
in very good position, by the way, of the promotion. Yeah.
And you referenced the MJF one, and that's the one that really struck me out because he doesn't tweet out of character. He stays in kayfabe.
That's the one that started the death threats and all the fans really ganging up on me. And I mean, they were on my YouTube, my Twitter, my Facebook, my personal Facebook. My God, my Instagram. Like, it was everywhere, nonstop, night and day. And don't tell me the AEW people didn't know that this was going to happen, because that's what they do, the fans. Like, not all of them. There's great fans at AEW too, but there's that core, fan base that they will do that every time you go against what they like. I understand defending your point, but to the point of belittling and like death threats and discrediting everything that other person did because they have a different story of what the beautiful like idea of what you have of what you like. That's where it's wrong. Like that you don't like the same thing as me. It's fine. Let's agree to disagree. Like, and it's not because I want to go to WWE that I said anything about AEW. No, I wish they would get their shit together. It's an option. They give a lot of jobs. They have a lot of shows. It's different. I just wish there was no drama. But as long as you're going to have wrestlers who are wrestling on the show and EVPs at the same time, men or women, it's not going to change.
Right.
You need people who are, my God, again, they have Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, Chris Hero. So many people that are not wrestling on the show that could be bookers, they are agent, but if from my own personal experience, they don't have much to say, or they don't talk to each other much, or whatever. How many times you're going to watch a show and there's going to be 26 tope suicida? If agents talk to each other, the same move is not repeated twice. But then again, what do I know? I'm just an indie lifer who's been in that locker room for a day. I've never seen any other locker rooms. So yeah.
I'm just a fan, and I'm just a fan, and I'm vocal. And it appears that even like if you take other names like your Arn Andersons and Jake Roberts that are around there, and you have people that seemingly don't, either those talents are either people like Arn and Jake aren't giving their advice, which I seriously doubt, or the talents are like, this is an old guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And like, probably very few people know what they're talking about more than those two people.
It's been known because several people talked about it that the talent on TV doesn't listen to the knowledge that there is backstage. My God. Mark Henry, whatever, even if they're not the same size as you and they wrestled a different style, the amount of knowledge they can share, whether it is on selling, getting people's attention, how to set up a match so you create something different. Because people, moves will impress people, but what they will remember forever is how they felt about a certain match, a certain storylines. It's about the moments.
Right.
And this is something anybody who has they always laugh about Jim Cornette, but Jim Cornette has so much knowledge that if you listen to what he says between, all the screaming and whatever, there's so much knowledge. You know what? You don't like what he said, it's fine, but pick the little things you can learn from him and just never mind the rest. Same thing, but Arn Anderson, how many factions are there at AEW? You got one of the guys who was in the Four Horsemen.
Almost everybody's in a faction, Let's take out the Four Horsemen. He's in the Dangerous Alliance with Steve Austin and Rick Rude and other people that know what they're talking about.
He was in a tag team with the Tully. He has so many different, different experiences that he can share with different type of talents.
Right.
And you're not listening to him?
Yeah.
I wish I had that. Like, so many things I've learned in wrestling was through trial and errors, because being the only girl, nobody wanted, they didn't care, whatever. So I made a lot of mistakes. I'm the first one who I made a lot of mistakes, rubbed people the wrong way because I didn't know. If I had somebody like that, oh my God. I just, maybe it's my generation. I just can't understand.
Right. Oh, and Arn is my favorite of all time, not just because I look just like him, but the guy's a genius. But you also, just to circle back, you were talking about Jim Cornette, and I often tell people that Jim Cornette has forgotten, it's maybe around noon Eastern time. Jim Cornette has forgotten more about wrestling today than the entire watching audience cumulatively has ever known.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
Maybe he goes a little overboard, but he definitely knows what he's talking about. In fact, I was at a meet and greet that Britt Baker was at, because you mentioned her as part of this, a few months ago, and I was wearing a Jim Cornette shirt, and she kicked me out of line.
Oh, you're the guy.
Yeah, that was me.
The guy. Okay.
And she still denies it.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
very often when you hear you're the guy, it means something different. But yeah, that was me.
No, but yeah, I think it's funny. Anyway.
There's a lot of people on the outside that feel like
doesn't he like her too?
Not as much.
I think so.
I mean, it's to some extent, yeah.
Oh well.
A lot of people on the outside looking in feel that all that level of tweets were like dictated by the man at the top, and was almost like dictated, or bonuses were provided for everyone coming together on that. That series of things resulted in you briefly closing out your social media effect.
Yeah.
And I know these things don't really affect you too much, but there had to be some effect, especially when you got the death threats. And you briefly mentioned that, but can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you?
They do affect me, because there's a lot of things that, it hurts. When you've spent like more than half my life now in this industry, and I mean, I've sacrificed a lot for wrestling, and I know I've helped a lot of people. And, I was the only girl CZW, and I made sure that, we would have a place that it would, like, I've worked real hard for Intergender or anything. And all you hear is that your points are invalid because you've never made it to WWE or AEW. And whatever you say is bad and you're just bitter. It's like, no, you don't understand. I love this so much that I've been here for 26 years, not even going to the top. I love this so much. And now, like, I love watching. That's actually one of the things I want to do more regularly now. That's why I bought like a camera and stuff. I want to help people with their matches. I love being an agent. I love watching matches and fix things and whatever. I love wrestling from A to Z, from the ring to the backstage. And when people are like, they're like, oh, she's just bitter, whatever, like, say that I'm very passionate about it, but I'm not bitter. Because if I would be bitter, I would try to destroy everything. And instead of speaking my truth, speaking what I believe is the truth, in that case, what I know. I've seen it with my own eyes, and then people freaking talk to me about what happened to them. I knew I was not going, I was expecting a backlash. I knew I was going to lose probably some friends because they want to make it so bad that they will throw me under the bus, just to make it, to show that they're on their side. But it's like, yeah, you're getting discredited for everything you did. And even if it's on the indies, by the way, everything starts on the indies and gets brought up there. So, stop pretending everything happens in, let's say, WWE first. Usually it happens down there and it gets up there.
Very few people have their entire career in WWE or AEW.
And I mean, that's cool. I mean, if you just start and you get picked up right away, more power to you. Good for you. Especially WWE with their training center. You'll be in good hands from the start. You'll learn how to work without hurting yourself. Of course, injuries do come, but I mean, when you're trained that way, you learn so much more than just wrestling moves. You learn the cameras, the TV, the speaking, the everything. So if you're at the performance center right from the start, you won't get bad habits. You won't get you'll learn how to work the way they want you to work right from the start. So, hey, good for you. And you're getting paid to learn. I mean, what can you ask more? Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned it in other podcasts, I suffer from severe ADHD and also severe depression. And I'm really, I control everything. I have a doctor, I have my medication, and I've always been really open about mental health. But when there's so many people throwing shit at you nonstop, it got too much where I was like, okay, I'm not in a good place right now. I just need to close this account. Because Twitter was the worst. I closed my Facebook page and because it was already a little bit too much. I closed it a little bit before because I was getting so many messages of people asking me for naked picture on Facebook, and when am I going to get my OnlyFans open, when so they can see my ass or whatever, that I was just like, I have enough, and I just closed it. If I get an OnlyFans one day, it's going to be wrestling thing, or if I open up my Patreon again, it's going to be wrestling things. It's not going to be my ass. So I'm sorry to disappoint a lot of people. Yeah, it got too much. And with my disease, and what really hurt is I would see some women out there, but oh my God, look at it. I know the guys, some of the guys were in the wrestlers. She's looking for attention. As somebody who has the heavy depression, I'm not looking for too much attention. I am when it comes to wrestling, when it comes to my matches, promoting my shows. But this kind of attention, I absolutely do not need it.
Right. And
to go back to the women, oh, she's crazy. I'm a woman. I know crazy when I see it. And I was like, wow. Okay, call my mental illness crazy if you want to. But the fact that women are ganging on women when they should be allying together. And there's actually a woman that says hey, that's your problem. You can ignore it and keep going because you're comfortable in your little spot out there. And you can say, you know what? I could be better. Let's all work together, because there's so much talent at AEW. So much talent that you don't even see on TV, or that you might see it dark. Is dark still a thing on YouTube? I don't even know.
They don't, but what happens is it's not, but what will happen is
it's not Ring of Honor, yeah.
And they'll sign somebody, and we'll see him for a few weeks, and then won't see him on TV for months after that.
See? They need to clean up a lot of things. They need to focus their time on people who they can develop. One thing I really love about AEW, because it's not all negative. One thing that I really love when it started, it took stars from the independent and it made them their own stars. And you had new people to look up to, new people to discover. They were different. It was not people, it was not like WCW when they would get someone from WWE and put, I mean, don't get me wrong, you need stars like this so that the common person who doesn't watch wrestling will go, it's like, oh, I love Daniel Bryan. He's wrestling as Bryan Daniels. So now I still want to watch it. And he's going to discover the other talent with at the same time. You need that.
I think the biggest problem with that is with that show is like, yeah, so like for your casual fan who's flipping channels, it's like, oh, hey, there's Chris Jericho. I remember him. Let me watch this show. So in that sense, it's trying to appeal to those casual, disengaged fans. But then you come on and you see basically a death match on there, and deathmatch has its place, maybe not on mainstream television. And then there's that, and then your disengaged fan who was watching in the Attitude Era for the stories might watch and say, "Can they do something besides flips?" You know, like that kind of stuff. And I've actually talked to people who have gone across and seen it and been like, "What is this?" Like, so I'm not just speaking as a critic. I'm speaking as somebody who I've actually heard that from people.
And the thing is, a lot of their storylines are rushed. Like let's take Wembley. I think they build everything in 2 weeks. With such a big show, and I'm not talking Cole and MJF right now, like everything else.
Right.
But
they announced the show 4 months ahead of time.
They should have started building 4 months ahead of time.
Right.
And not just one storyline for the main event, which of course is your most important. That's the one you start with. But there should have been more. Everything was rushed. Everything, to go back to what you were saying about people watching, I'm a deathmatch girl.
Right.
I'm one of the first women who did death matches in North America. I love it. I can't say anything wrong about it. But the thing with death matches that everybody needs to understand, it is not for common folks. It is not for everybody. Not everybody will enjoy that style of wrestling. So when you got the TV flippers that are and if that's what they see, they're not going to stay. Deathmatch has a purpose, and I think it should be kept for pay-per-views. You can do a spot where somebody on TV is left bleeding. That leads to having a no DQ, but there's a build-up to it. Right now, there's just death matches and no count out, no disqualification match for no reason. Why are these two people who are not even in a feud having? It's kind of lazy.
Right.
Build it when it means something. A death match can be like crucial to a feud. It's the last thing. They tried everything. They destroyed each other. That's the last resort. Death match or cage match or something bigger, kind of a gimmick match where it's the end. This has to end. We got to this point, but it takes months and months of buildup. And what gets, it's funny when you look at the ratings, the rating starts high and they go down, and then they may go up again for the main event. And then it's not like people don't stay, they flip. You want to keep people. And how do you keep them? The same way the soap operas of the afternoon kept my grandma on their TV for years and years. There's more to the story, more. There's a cliffhanger. What's 24? I always give the show 24 as an example. It would always end with such a cliffhanger. It's like, oh my God, I wish I was watching the DVDs because I want to watch what's going on next, but you're on TV. Right. You have to make sure that you don't miss a show, because if you miss one show, you're going to miss something big. You're going to get lost. That's the way I believe wrestling should be booked. You want people to stay in their seat. You want them, and you do that. You can't do it for every match on the card. You need like filler matches, but at least have matches where you go like, oh, that seems like a good matchup. You can start something from there, or you do a test. Two guys never wrestle each other. There's no storyline, clean finish. But you can see like, oh, I think people would like that feud. They really like that match. You test things. And you have your major, you got one major story for your women, one for your tag team, one for your world title. Get rid of a few belts. There's too many.
Yep.
Not every match needs to be a championship match. And you build those. And around that, you build your contenders. Because now people are having matches. Like everybody was like, oh, the main event is a women's match. I think it was, who was it? Was it Statlander versus, or Tony versus, my God, and Anna Jay. I can't remember what was the match. But Anna Jay had lost pretty much all her matches on TV. And they're like, oh, she won her matches elsewhere. The person who just watches Wednesdays and Saturdays or doesn't know, it doesn't make sense, especially if you're like, there's that rankings, but half of the matches you don't see. I mean, no, just have Anna Jay beat someone, then the following week maybe she wins a number one contender match, then she has a match. Short storyline of 3 shows, but at least the fact that she's up there, now it makes sense. And they understand why, because you were able to follow from Wednesday to Wednesdays. But again, I don't know anything. I'm just an indie wrestler.
I mean, I'm just a fan. I'm completely with you there because I know, like, you're talking about the story building. And one of the things that I love in wrestling stories, WWE does it a lot, is like relationship drama. You have a tag team that breaks up over a woman. You have 2 women fighting and it's over. They both are in love with one of the other male wrestlers. You have some form of relationship drama. And I interviewed Jerry Jarrett once, years ago.
Wow.
And he said personal issues draw money. And so like that's the stuff that I really want to see. And the match is cool if it's, you know, an exciting match, okay, but I want to care about it before I get to that point.
Exactly. And the thing is, when we're talking personal issues, it has to be different issues. I feel everything is about friendship. Oh, you're not my friend. Are you my friend? It's like, why is it all about your friendship? Like you said, like
you Brett have that, I want it.
Yeah, Brett and Owen. It was 2 brothers. That was the relationship. One felt he was in the shadows of his older brother. That's something else. You're talking about the 2 girls fighting over a guy. It's different. I don't necessarily like it because I feel it's always where they go when it comes to women.
Yeah.
But what happened to the good old story of like, hey, I'm the best here. You just came in. There's no way you're going to take my spot. Just who's the best? How about that storyline? Where is it? I never hear about it anymore. I want to know who's the best. Oh, a master and a student, different relationship. It's personal. Student wants to beat the master, or master thinks student has too much of a big head now, wants to bring it back to his place. It's all different, but it's all like you said, a relationship, a personal issue of some sort. But please stop the freaking, are you my friend? Oh, you're my friend. You're not my friend. It's kind of a babyish.
Right.
If you have one, it's fine. But if it's all the storylines are built on that, it's like redundant.
Yep. I'm going to go back and try to step away from the controversial things as of late.
Hey, it's okay. We talked about booking too. So
getting back into your career. Going back to 2006 was when you started working with Shimmer. Your first match there was actually someone that I know listens to us and is one of your most common opponents, Mercedes Martinez. What are some of your favorite matches with Mercedes and experiences in Shimmer?
Everything with Mercedes is a good memory. I often say she's my wrestling soulmate. We can go in there and just fight. I know her moves, she knows mine, and we could just brawl. She has a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Like she's able to go in there and she listens to the crowd and she feels the crowd. I like to work that way too. And the first time I went to Shimmer, which was funny because I was the CCW Ironman champion and was like the CCW girl. I remember reading on boards, forums back then. Oh my God, the garbage girl! Don't bring that to Shimmer. Shimmer is pure. I was like, oh, but I was like, I can wrestle. I don't do just death matches, and when I do death matches, I do moves with weapons. I just don't hit. Like, yeah, of course, there's going to be some hits, but I like to include my wrestling with stuff.
Right.
So I really I went there. It's like, it was really like, I need to prove them that I can work. And I went in there with Mercedes first time I met her. And I think it just clicked. And there was a standing ovation right after the match. And I was like, yeah. And a lot of people came to see me at the merch table. It's like, we didn't know you could wrestle like that. I'm like, well, a lot of people talk about my death matches, but I do regular wrestling and I actually prefer regular wrestling. I love the matches I had at Shimmer because of, telling a story, building up something. And with Mercedes, we had a feud in different promotions. Like, we brought it to Montreal, to New Jersey, to New Orleans, like several places, Chicago, of course, Berwyn. So yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. And I did create some of the gear she's wearing and the jacket. So that's pretty cool that she has me and she has a little bit of me with her.
Yeah. I noticed that when you talk about Mercedes, I can't wipe the smile off your face.
True. I love Mercedes. I miss her. It's been a while. I haven't seen her. And she is actually one of the highlights I had of my AEW days, because after all the matches and the drama and the shit, I just sat down and I talked with Mercedes about all kinds of things. And that was really one of the highlights of my night.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've had very few experiences with her, but they were all pleasant.
Not surprised.
That's one of the things that I feel like, and you kind of alluded to it there, that people just made the impression of you just knowing that you were a deathmatch girl going into there. And in a lot of ways, I feel like the internet's kind of ruined wrestling in the sense of people just sort of are like, read what people think or read what they like. I would rather have like never heard of you, and then you show up on a show and be like, I don't know who this is, but I like her. I'm gonna keep watching her, as opposed to, oh, LuFisto's gonna be on the show. She's a deathmatch girl. I'm not even gonna bother going to the show. Like in that sense, I think that people get these preconceived notions based off opinion columns and opinions on earlier on the internet, but now with the boards, as you were talking about, but now with social media too.
I mean, social media is so good in a way because it got independent wrestling out there.
Mm-hmm.
We now have with like channels like Fight and IWTV. I mean, the shows are everywhere. Independent wrestling is bigger than ever. There's more wrestlers than ever. There's good things about the digital era, we could call it. But the thing that people will get themselves over because of what they do online, or because they speak their opinion, people are going to go right away. Oh, it's a shit wrestler, whatever. And they've actually never seen them wrestle.
Right.
That's really one of the downfall of internet. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I wrestled in Winnipeg not too long ago. And it's after the AEW things. And you know how many people say I was a shit wrestler and I'm terrible. It's because you're like, blah, blah, blah. People are better than you. So many people at the merch table came to see me. It's like, oh, I see why they hate you. You're fucking good.
I was going to say, you probably tore the house down.
I was like, wow, thank you. It was funny, but I was like, yeah, if you just read those comments, like I suck. And people were like, wow, you're so entertaining. There's a guy who was there, like an older gentleman. Like, you take the time to, talk to the crowd. It's good to see someone who gets it. One other comments I had is I was wrestling. That's before AEW, but just to let you know how social media works different. I'm working Vanessa Craven at C4, and Craven was out for years because of a leg injury. So I keep attacking the leg, and people like enjoy the match, whatever. But there's one guy who comes to me. It's like, hey, I would just want to let you know the Bret Hart psychology of working on the injured limb. Some of us got it. That was great. And then he left. I was like, yes. But if you read everything online, you just think I'm just doing crazy bumps. And it's funny because people would call me the deathmatch girl when I was not even doing death matches anymore. From 2007 to this year, I didn't do death matches. I just started again with ICW No Holds Bar in April, March this year. I started doing it again a little bit, but I had like 5 death matches over 50 regular matches. Still the death match girl. Anyway,
you talk about that with the Bret Hart psychology, and I call that something different. I call it doing your fucking job.
Thank you. I always do my best. I go out there and right. I want the match to make sense. I want the match to be enjoyable, but again, I want it to be realistic as much as I can.
Just got to make it believable, I think. And I think by using that
to think like, oh, this really hurts, or this right. I want them to be. I involve the crowd in the match. Like I really want them to be part. There's the ref, my opponent, myself, and there's the crowd. We all work together.
Right. That rivalry with Mercedes Martinez carried over to Women's Wrestling Uncensored. What's some of your memories and high points in WSU?
Oh, definitely getting out of the casket and attacking Mercedes. She was having that match with Jessica Havoc, a casket match, and they kind of broke the casket. They brought in another one, and I was in the caskets, and I just popped out. It was great. That was one of the. We had also a Fall Counts Anywhere at the Flyers training arena. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah. What are some of your outside of Mercedes? Obviously, we just talked about her at some length. Do you have any favorite opponents and or matches up to date?
Kana, Asuka, Josh Alexander.
Where did you work Kana at? Was that in Japan?
Kana was at Shimmer. We worked against each other, and after we were a tag team. So I really like my time with her. Other favorite opponent.
You just said Josh Alexander. Where? When did you work with him?
That was at C4 Wrestling.
Okay.
Yep. My God. I really like working Kevin Blackwood. There's many. I love working Jody Threat. There's different people I like to work. And most of all, I like working different people, like new people. I love having different opponents. That's always cool to me to, learn about someone new and work them. And yeah, like I love working new people, younger people too, like that I can share a little bit of me and my knowledge to them and make sure they're safe and they're having fun. And they can beat up my old ass.
When you talk about Josh Alexander too, I always tell people, because not as many people watch Impact as maybe should, but I tell people he's probably the best wrestler that you haven't seen wrestle.
Yeah.
do you prefer intergenders or straight women's matches? I guess you don't really work that many women's matches, especially early on.
There
But
was
do
a
you have a preference?
time where I would have said men because women, there was not many and they were not, I wouldn't say properly trained, but they didn't wrestle enough. So they were fluent in the ring. But nowadays, I think it doesn't matter whether I wrestle a Masha Slamovich or you know, a Josh Alexander, Utami. Um, it's all the same to me because women have elevated their style and their performances so much since that I don't think it matters anymore. I just want to wrestle people who are good, but mostly people who love wrestling. I'd rather wrestle somebody who's been in a business for less than a year, but are so excited about, you know, the match than someone who's been there forever and just, it's just another match, you know?
Right.
I still watch my opponents. I still study them. I still enjoy the work before the match. I love, like I said, just for instance, this weekend I'm wrestling Katrina Creed that I've seen evolve from a manager to a wrestler. She's trained by one of my students. So all this to me is like really exciting. She's from IWS, a place that's kind of home for me in Quebec as well. Trained also at IWS by Shane Ock. So for me, it's all things that are really exciting to me, and I'm looking forward to this fight. I always try to get what's fun in that match and try to work with it. And another match that I have that was just announced that I'm so excited about is Aiden Prince. He's so good. So yeah, definitely I've got like cool matches coming up. Another one with Jody Threat in Winnipeg. So yep. So I'm really excited about all my matches that are happening soon. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, that match with Jody Fretz coming up on October 7th. It's going to be at Rumble in the Vert, put on by Winnipeg Professional Wrestling. That'll be in up there in Winnipeg, the area. She's actually trying to avenge her first loss there in over a year, which was to you. What can fans expect to see at this event?
Hard-hitting, passionate two Canucks that really love wrestling, that will give you everything they have. I love Jody. I see a lot of her. I see a lot of younger me in Jody. She has the fire. She has the excitement. You can see she loves wrestling, and she's always very motivated to do good. So as an opponent, it makes me motivated, and I want to give more, and really looking forward to it again.
So everyone up there in the Winnipeg area, go check that out. It's 2 weeks from today, Saturday, October 7th.
Yes.
What is something that those in your closest circle would be surprised to learn about you?
I work in a prison.
I was going to say, you seem like somewhat of an open book.
Yeah, I am. But my personal life, I've always kept kind of quiet-ish. Especially working in a prison, like if people wonder why I'm not on social media during the day, I can't. I can't, don't have my phone. But yeah, I actually, that's what I do for a living. I'm not an agent, but I'm in charge of everything that has to do with files and, all the crazy documents that are necessary for the good functioning of a prison.
When you said that, I actually went to like you were a corrections officer or something.
Yeah, like people think like I would probably do a good correction officer, but I don't know. I really like working with papers and computers and getting things together, organize things. That's probably things that people don't know actually, that I'm really I love cleaning. I love to organize things. I like making things better overall. Like right now, I'm painting my kitchen. I've changed the whole kitchen, like change all the colors, change the draperies, the everything. I do everything myself. I create my own gear. I create my own t-shirt designs. By the way, new t-shirts design coming soon. I should put it on my website. It'll be available for the Winnipeg show. Yeah.
Is that one of your t-shirts you're wearing right now?
No, that's actually from that was one of my sponsors a while ago. It's
Okay.
Sip Things. They have like some cool stuff that are more like devilish kind of things. It says "Heat the Rich." Yeah, but it's the kind of art that I like to do. So yeah, I'm pretty much of a. I have 2 degrees, graphic design, multimedia design. So that's why I create a lot of gear design for me, for other people, t-shirts, DVDs, my own website. And I do renovations as well myself. I'm pretty good at painting and all stuff. Yeah. How did they say that? A jack of all trades,
right?
Or a jerk of all trades, whatever you prefer.
With someone past or present, who would your dream opponent be that you haven't had the chance to work with?
Well, like I said, Owen Art was one of my favorite. I really wish I would have been able to work Owen, Bull Nakano, and Medusa. Medusa, I know you still have 1 or 2 in you. Come on, let's make it happen.
Let's set her up on social media, get that happening.
I love Medusa. The fact that she once in a while like talks to me on Twitter.
Does she?
Is
yeah.
She's an inspiration, definitely. A woman with big balls who tells it like it is too.
There was at one point she was kind of like the biggest women's wrestler around.
Definitely. Like I said, she's the one that led me to discover Japanese wrestling, and yeah, big inspiration in Medusa.
Yep. You did a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you see this? That's her book.
Oh yeah.
Lisa's book. Yeah. By Greg Oliver. Yeah. Great book. I'm reading it right now.
What are those trophies back there? What is this for?
This is the you can see some of the plaques from the Hall of Fames I have, but the trophy there is it's the People's Choice Best of the Best 2008 from CZW.
Okay.
The thing that's hanging is my pass from my backstage pass from 16 karat gold, where I was the first female to be in the tournament in Germany. And yeah, CZW Hall of Fame. And then the GCW Indie Hall of Fame plaque as well. Right there.
Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. All
That's
there. We haven't really talked much about CZW, but like you said, you're a CZW Hall of Famer. Talk about a little bit about your time in CZW. I'm not going into much detail because I'm one that I didn't really get, and I didn't see a lot of CZW, so I'm kind of a dope when it comes to that piece of it.
There's one thing I could say about CZW is definitely John Zandig really believed in me, and after after everything I said about Jacques Rougeau and how my state of mind was, especially towards my self-esteem, John really boosted my self-esteem. Like, he believed in me a lot more than I did. And he got me into the cage of death, and you go, kid, you can do it. And he was always very supportive. I still talk to him to this day on Facebook. And yeah, he's been a great influence for me to get some of that confidence back and some of that, I wouldn't say I don't care attitude, because I care, and I always care too much, but more about like take things with a grain of salt and keep pushing. Definitely John Zendig helped a lot.
Very nice.
Promoters are all, they're all, none of them are all bad. Like I've got really good relationship with a lot of promoters, and John Zendig's one of them. Mark from C4, Manny IWS, Drew from Beyond Wrestling, Dave Prazak. I can't talk highly enough of Dave Prazak. And there's many more. I mean, there's great promotions out there. Everybody I work for now, I would say, like, great people. Danny DeMonto, Brett Lauderdale, really good to me with GCW. Great. Yeah, I'm really blessed with the people I work for right now.
That's good to hear, because just by definition, promoters get kind of a bad rap, and we tend to hear those and think that everyone's a Jacques Rougeau, and probably the John Zandig types are the more common what you run into.
Yeah, there's good ones out there, and I mean it's you just go to a place, if it doesn't feel right, just don't go back. Keep the ones that you feel safe, you feel that you're valued, that your work is appreciated. So yeah, that's why I'm picky about where I go, but the ones that I do have, I'm really grateful for them.
You did a lot of wrestling during the pandemic era. How did that compare with that really weird time in our society, as opposed to the before times or since times?
The pandemics, the funny thing is that the first year and a half, I think, I did not wrestle at all, because we could not cross the border, one, and two, wrestling was not allowed in Canada at all. Any combat sports was not allowed. So at first it was like, okay, let's heal some injuries, refocus. But there was a time I was like, well, this is getting long. And we did the wrestling where people were like wearing masks, and we couldn't touch them for pictures, the fans, and it was challenging, but at least we were wrestling again, which was a good thing, because we were all about to go nuts. But the good thing I will say the pandemic brought is that I feel that people, they finally realize what wrestling meant to them. So when everything opened up again, like the crowds, they're bigger than ever. It's packed full. I think people really realize how much they miss wrestling. And now, like, they're not missing a show. And I feel like there's a lot more people attending shows now.
The first show I went to after all that, it was a local indie show, and it was smaller than like a high school gym. So there was maybe 250 people there, but it was full. And I sent a text to someone on one of the connected shows, and I said, this just feels right.
Yeah, it just feels right. And the people are so into it too. They're like, even if they're 250, they're so loud. Like they get into the shows, and they know how good wrestling can feel. You have that shitty week at work, you just go to a wrestling show, you let it all out. Right. You scream to the heels what you wanted to tell your boss all week. It's like, yeah, I mean, wrestling is great.
Yep. More recently, in 2022, you were inducted into the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like how it came about, the experience there, anyone who might have inducted you, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought when they first announced the Hall of Fame, it was so cool. I'm like, finally, indie wrestlers are getting recognition, blah, blah, blah. And no, like, I didn't think I would be in it, or even somebody would think about me. And it's funny, because I got my US visa to go work again in the States. And as soon as I announced that my visa was valid and whatever, Brett Lauderdale sends me a message on Facebook, and I'm at work. And that was before I was working in the prison. I had my phone. So he goes like, hey, want to come to the Hall of Fame? I'm like, It's like, I don't know. I would have to check with work, and I don't know if I can afford it. He's like, no, we pay for everything. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no. He's like, I'm asking you to be in the Hall of Fame. I was like, what? And then I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And I knew there was no other women that were announced, and pretty much everybody was announced then. Like maybe one was missing or whatever. I text my boyfriend, it's like, they just asked me to be in the Hall of Fame we were talking about. He's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Cancel everything. We're going. I'm like, I got to check with work. It's like, fuck it, we're going. And like, he was like so into it. He's like, you deserve this. You've worked so hard. You were the only girl for so long. You broke down barriers. Like he's my greatest fan. Like he motivates me so much. And he's like, there's no way we are not attending this live. And at the same moment, I was in talks with, I had been for a while, but the pandemic happened, with a producer who wanted to do a big movie about me, because he's like, people got to know your story. His name is Adam. And he's an Emmy winner director, him and his soon-to-be wife, Emily. And we're like, we're going to come down for this. We need this on camera for the event. And so they come down and they have everything on camera. So there's not only there's, the feed that was live that night, but there's also a professional director who caught up the images. And I can't wait to see it. And we've been filming stuff ever since. And yeah, extremely grateful that Brett and GCW would consider me, and that it was important for me to be the first one. And I can't thank Lenny Leonard enough for the introduction he gave me. I love the fact that he went out there and he said, you know what? You need a heel, LuFisto's got you. You need a face, LuFisto got you. You need 5 minutes, she's got you. You need 25, she's got you. She can do anything. And I was like, man, thank you so much. Like it was such a great introduction. Like I'm really blessed.
Yeah, you were part of the initial class of that, and it was it's obviously a pretty great class there, because you went in with Jerry Lynn, Homicide, Ruckus, Dave Prazak, and Tracy Smothers.
Tracy,
may rest in peace. So that must have been an incredible experience for you.
Definitely being there with all these people, and it was cool that I was with Ruckus because he was there when I was at CZW. So, and I was in a feud with Blackout. So his his team, like with Robbie as well. So yeah, it was just great. And CM Punk was there. He was like super nice. And I didn't think he would remember me from another show. He saw me years ago. It was like, hey, hi. And then like super cool. Chris Hero was there. Yeah, no, it's overall just a great night. And we GCW got us like some amazing steaks at the steakhouse after. Like I really felt important for that day. No, they really treated us like yeah, like VIPs, like what a great day. The whole weekend there in New York was great. And since it was during the pandemic, getting out of Canada, and there was a lot more freedom in the States when it comes to the pandemic. It felt like refreshing, rejuvenating. It was just great to be with my boyfriend in New York, and
right.
There was no snow also in January. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. The Canadian in me was really happy about the no snow.
Imagine if it was in Florida, and then it'd be like, not only is there no snow, but it's like 50, 60, 70 degrees out.
Oh, it's been a while since I've been to Florida. I need to go back. I miss the Florida fans.
I live in Virginia, so it's kind of like right in the middle of that weather. Do you have anything you'd like to say to your fans to close everything up?
26 years and going, and one of the main reason why is it's because of you guys, because every bad comments I had, I would get like tons, and I mean tons of private messages or on my pictures of, we know you're right. We know how you are. We've been following you for years. We know you always tell what's on your mind, and even if it's not pretty. And during the bad times, I know you guys got my back. And I mean, it's always cool when you come see me at shows and you talk to me. And please know that I read and I appreciate every message you send me, and I always try to answer everybody. Even if it takes a while, sometimes I will. But yeah, thank you from the bottom of my heart for this journey of 26 years. And hopefully there's more time to it. If not as a wrestler, I really hope that I'll be able to be an agent somewhere and, take care of the new generation so they don't have to go through what I did go through, and that they can avoid the Jacques Rougeaus of this world, and get to work with amazing people who take care of you. And wrestling is supposed to be fun. Have fun, enjoy it, protect yourself, protect each other. And if you need anything, there's a LuFisto, there's a wrestling mom, there's a wrestling dad, never too far, who's there to help. Go and ask for help and ask for comments. We're here to help. So there's that knowledge that's standing nearby, and use it. Definitely use it.
I tell people on my team, the feedback is a gift. No one's going to give you feedback if they want you to fail. I want to remind everyone to go check out LuFisto's website at LuFisto.com. She also has her merchandise store on there, as well as a pro wrestling tees store at prowrestlingtees.com/LuFisto. Her YouTube is at youtube.com/user/LuFi, LUFI channel. Follow her on Twitter, or X as they say now, at LuFisto. I'm going to spell out her Instagram because it's a weird spelling. Not weird spelling, but different.
Out LuFisto all together because somebody took the name LuFisto.
Yep. I
don't know how to get that fixed because my name is trademarked, but every time I write to Instagram or I try to get a blue check, they don't answer, they refuse, and I can't even send them my trademark papers.
So I'll spell it. It's Wounded, OWLLUFISTO.
Yeah, Wounded Owl LuFisto.
Wounded Owl, with two L's, LuFisto.
Yes, well, Owl, OWL.
Oh, owl, like the bird. Yep.
Owl like the bird.
I thought owl like an injury, and then double L. And also on Instagram, you can get the information of the documentary that LuFisto was referencing at LuFisto Doc. Exactly. Did I miss any of your links here?
I don't think so. I mean, if you go on my website, LuFisto.com, all the links are there. I have a link tree with all the links there. I have new pins, new stickers that are available now on my website. I got 2-for-1s on some of the pictures. I got a new shirt coming in first week of October. It's pretty cool. So check it out. And there's a place where you can write. It's for bookers, but it's also for fans. So feel free to send me messages and I'll answer as soon as I can.
Yep. And that's LuFisto.com for all your LuFisto needs.
Exactly.
On that note, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, LuFisto, and being so candid with everybody. And it was definitely much appreciated. And have a great rest of your day.